What is up, everybody? Keith, aka Gator Guy 231, here for the second part of our WNBA DFS preview at FSI. We are breaking down the 6 Western Conference teams today with my guy, Dub Lewis. Will, how is it going this morning?
Pretty good, Gator. Glad to be back, man.
Yeah, I guess we're officially now showing the true rivalry between the Vols and the Gators today. Is this the part where I don't mention how bad your football team has been for a while?
Let's just start talking about the Western Conference team.
I
see you one time on video, and you have Florida Gators that have decked out. So you might as well have been holding an alligator. So had to come back a little bit of my own this morning.
I mean the name is Gator Guy, So
that's what you signed up for, right?
Right. But all jokes aside, our Eastern Conference preview I think was really awesome. Make sure you check that out. If I did the technology right, you should have something dropping down that you can click it at this moment. If not, there'll be a link in the details. But today we are all about the Western Conference, which if you are new to WNBA, all the power, the stars, the really amazing teams are in the West. So let's break down what really is a stacked Western Conference subs. And we're going to start off. Now, how we're going to go this is I used ESPN's power rankings to decide the order. No other good reason. But they have Seattle on top, and Seattle as the number 1 team in the league. Why don't you talk to me about who the key additions, departures, maybe some early season targets?
Yeah, so I think, the Sky or the Storm rank, number 1 in the power rankings by ESPN. And I think we talked about it a little bit in the last video. They're probably my consensus number 1 overall team as well. Just as far as departures go, really no one except for Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis in Connecticut, which is, not much of a loss at all. And then, you have no real losses, and you bring back, Brianna Stewart, who was injured last season, Sue Bird, who missed last season, and Morgan Tuck, who will fill that Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis role from last year. So, they pretty much are starting, day one of, shortened training camp, not much time to get ready with a much better team than already from last year. And, last year they already were a solid team. And so, you should see a very similar starting lineup last year. I imagine Sue Bird stays on the bench to start, and you still have Jordan Canada, Jewel Lloyd in that backcourt. Maybe Alicia Clark on the, playing small forward. Mm-hmm. And then, Brianna Stewart will slot in right next to Natasha Howard and, make a, very, very, very solid starting 5 to start the season for the Storm.
And, the thing about the Storm to me is, like you said, they were already a good team, and now they add back, for me, the top talent in the WNBA. I think nobody is as talented as Brianna Stewart, personally. And, she's posted multiple times on social media how ready she is. She's had tons of time to get ready, especially with the season getting pushed back. So I think she is going to be in great form. The one departure I did want to write down, because I'm just a little weird like that. They were missing their coach. And here we go. I'm about to go on a rant, Will. Sorry. Apologies. Just the bullshit that is going on here, that a coach can get a waiver because he's worried about health. But then Elena Deladon, who has a legit health condition, no, you got to go play or get back your money. Like, such crap. Can't tell.
Here we are. So yeah, here we go. There goes flying for a second. Here we go. But so I think it'll be interesting. I think even with the fill-in coach, he coached a lot of the end of last season as well. Was it all of last season that he coached?
But I mean, I say it, but I just want to point out, the players on the show, especially when you have such experience with Brianna Stewart and Sue Bird that have played with each other so much, they'll be fine. So why don't you talk about what we've already mentioned, our favorite early season fade and pivot, and we're talking about Natasha Howard.
Yeah, so I think my early season fade for the Seattle Storm is just going to be Natasha Howard. 2 years ago when Howard and Stewart played alongside each other, you had games where Natasha Howard would pop off with 6 or 7 blocks and steals and rack up 45 or 50 fantasy points. But that was a play we were very comfortable fading, pretty usually night in and out, just because of her floor being a lot lower. And you've seen way less ceiling games with Brianna Stewart right next to her in the lineup, and even Sue Bird back in the next too. Just more contributors that are going to take away from that. And so I think you'll see Natasha Howard still have a good season, especially on the boards, racking up blocks and steals and stuff, but you will not see her, have the scoring output that she did of last year. And so she'll probably be my top fade early on, just because I believe she will be priced up with those stats at the beginning of the season. And, you should see her drop off a little bit in price. And so maybe she becomes very playable later on in the season, but at least to start, it'll be a situation that I will avoid. And, my favorite play really just going to be Brianna Stewart. I'm a little hesitant. I know they're on that first slate. So on that first Saturday, I don't know if I pull the trigger that early on, just because of minutes and what that might look like. But, by several games in the season, she will be the top player for the Seattle Storm. And, Jordan Canada, Jewel Lloyd, Sue Bird, that backcourt will probably be something I'll stay away from early on. And, you always have Alicia Clark, who's a very solid cash play, usually in that $4,000 or $5,000 range on FanDuel. So she'll be another solid target early on, just because she'll be able to play big minutes and contribute kind of all around for them.
Yeah, I was going to say Alicia Clark's like a FanDuel darling, just because where she always shows up with like a couple steals and we get that 3 points versus 2, and it shows. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Brianna Stewart is the one to me that is not going to give away shots. Those shots will come at the expense of Natasha Howard, and thus why we like the fade. So I think a really good parallel of like how you have to deal with Brianna Stewart and Natasha Howard is what we've always had to deal with the LA Sparks, who are the next team on our list. So why don't you talk about who they have added, departures, and who we need to watch?
Yeah, so the Sparks they made some moves. They lost some people, added some people in free agency. Chiney Gwumake will be sitting out after, pairing up with Mr. Nneka in Los Angeles last year. So, that'll open up some more minutes in the front court there. They also lose Kalani Brown, so they lose, their other center, who's now with the Atlanta Dream. Maria Vadiva also gone as well. She'll not be with the team this year. So, that's 3 front court players, right off the bat that the Sparks lose in the offseason. And then, of course, they bring in Christy Tolliver from the Washington Mystics, but she will not be playing this year. So, really, they do have some talent that they do not have this year, even though I expect them to be just about as good as they were last year. They do have some talent that they've lost. As far as additions go, they bring in Simona Gessis from Minnesota, which was kind of a head turner for most people. I mean, the end of her career at this point. So not much of a move, but still surprising that she left a long time, the Lynx, to come join up with the Sparks, which is interesting. I think their biggest move was probably Brittany Sykes. Brittany Sykes has kind of always been a talented player out of Syracuse. And, she had some big games for the Atlanta Dream. It was just a really crowded backcourt. And, as a shoot first guard, it was crowded. And so she didn't find much opportunity and kind of way to implement herself in the offense there. So she'll get a fresh start in LA, probably. I'd imagine play that 6-man role to kind of start off the season. But, we could see that develop into a starting role, or, you should be playing big minutes regardless for them. Also bring in Rashonda Gray from the New York Liberty to kind of fill up some front court. And, Rashonda Gray was a good player last year for the Liberty off the bench. Christina Nigwe from the Dallas Wings and Marie Gulich from the Atlanta Dream are kind of, the big offseason fill-ins for the team. So that's kind of what we got.
And with all that said, it's all as it always is with the Spark, it's going to come down to the big 3. So why don't you talk to everybody, just a little bit of how you handle that night tonight.
Sure. So, all those big moves, I can't imagine that has too many fantasy implications outside of what you said, the big 3 for Los Angeles Sparks: Chelsea Gray at point guard, Candace Parker at, small forward, power forward. And to be said, Candace Parker did not have a good season last year. She came back from injury. She probably should not have come back at all. And so I think I've seen that Derek Fisher saying she's much healthier this year, ready to go. So I'm going to expect we get a full Candace Parker this year. So, Chelsea Gray, Candace Parker, then Nneka Ogwumike at center. And, the 3 of them, are the Sparks' big 3, but it does make things tough from a fantasy standpoint. I think we were able to target, Nneka Ogwumike was a great play night in and out last year just because of how much Candace Parker was struggling. So she had way more opportunity last year. And even Chelsea Gray, to some extent, had, probably a higher floor and ceiling last year than she will this year, just because I expect Candace Parker to, to step in and handle more ball handling responsibilities over Chelsea Gray at times. And, also command more usage down low. So you could see that take away from Nneka just a little bit. So that'll be a situation to monitor early on. So it probably will not be players I'm smashing in my lineup right off the bat, just because that might be a situation where, I evaluate, the stats of Candace Parker and what her contributions are before I start smashing those players in my lineup. But, they're a very talented team. And, you will find ways where you can play one of them in your lineup. But, the odds of you playing 2 of Chelsea Gray, Candace Parker, and Nneka in one lineup, just not likely, just because it's usually kind of one of them has the big night. And so it's it'll be a kind of wait and see approach for the time being.
Yeah, and I think Chelsea Gray, I think, is one that a lot of times we've ended up on in the past, just because she'll go through some spurts where she has some bad games, and because she's kind of like the forgotten person out of that big three, she gets priced down, especially on FanDuel. So somebody that we've seen drop below 6K on FanDuel, and that's when you can just really jam her in. Then you get like 10 FanDuel from her. You tilt your face off. You do it one more time, and she drops 50, and it all works out. But that's Chelsea Gray for me, at least. And by the way, if anybody
exactly.
I was just gonna say, you mentioned Derek Fisher. My immediate reaction every time I hear that guy is can't stand Derek Fisher. I don't know why. I'm sure you're a nice guy, Derek. Thank you so much for watching our preview. But but no, I just don't like that guy.
I think it'll be interesting too. Chrissy Tolliver not playing. They thought they'd have her, and I saw a quote Derek Fisher saying that Raquana Williams will have to step up even more in the absence. Raquana Williams. I mean, last year, how many times did we play her in our lineup? She was incredible last year with Candace Parker struggling. I mean, she had games where she was dropping 40, 50 fantasy points. Just a straight up shooter. A nice goal from deep, and so she again never seen a shot she doesn't like. So she's always going to be in play, especially if she's priced down early on. I think she won't have as much for roles last year. However, if anyone's struggling on that team, she is someone that can pick up the slack, and it'll be interesting to see how a lineup with her and Brittany Sykes on the floor at the same time looks, because that's just going to be interesting if they have both those girls out there. Just the little defense, big three.
Lana Beard's still there, right?
I don't think she's on the roster.
I think I heard she's not there, but I guess my thought on that was, I do think that you see Sykes overtake that Williams spot at the end of the year. I just think that LA is getting a little bit older, so you need somebody like Brittany Sykes, more young, more energy, going to do a lot more things than Rakina.
I could see closing lineups, her playing over Ruffin Pratt, because Ruffin Pratt probably still starts. So I could see it being a great Raquana Williams, Sykes, Parker, NECA kind of closing lineup thing.
And Ruffin Pratt's one of those players that you just kind of need, that doesn't need the ball, that will just do a lot of dirty work type of thing. So yeah, it makes sense. All right, so let's talk. We haven't had a lot of drama yet, Will, with these two teams. They're kind of just a little bit more together. We know what we're getting. And then we have the Aces, who could easily, you could say, have more just pure star power than any team in the league. Yet, holy crap, to understand what they're going to do night in and night out is a little bit different. So why don't you talk to me about some of the superstar additions, the superstar subtraction / maybe not show up, and who we're going to target?
Yeah, I think, Coach Lambier's not being, quiet with any of his moves. Everything they're doing, they're just trying to put together a star-studded team and hope that it all works out. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes this year. Speaking of drama, Liz Cambage, it appears to not be playing this year. But she is the drama. There you go. We can put that, somehow insert that in the video.
I know the nail photo.
She is the drama queen of the league. So it'll be, with all these things going on, there was no way she was going to be playing this year. But so she's taking the season off. Kelsey Plum's out the season. I think she got surgery on something. So
Achilles, I think I saw.
Achilles, yeah, which is not good early on in your career. So I can't imagine that's anything good. But and then Tamara Young won't be with the team this year either. As far as who they bring in, they bring in Angel McCoughtry from the Atlanta Dream, who was just kind of more on the back end of her career, but missed last year with injury. But I think she still could step in if she gets in shape and provide a good role.
Let me interrupt one thing.
Go ahead.
McCoughtry. So Angel McCoughtry, for those that don't know the player, has always been one of the more explosive and athletic players in the league. She's coming off of an ACL. So when we previewed this, I'd been having some pause on Angel McCoughtry, and I was like, oh no, she's going to be great. And the more I thought about it, I do have some pause with the injury she's coming off of. So I just wanted to toss that in. So why don't you talk? So we have McCoughtry coming in, and then who else do we have?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. So Angel McCoughtry comes in, then you also have Alex Bentley come in from the Atlanta Dream, who we were just talking about Brittany Sykes. To some extent, kind of the same. You should have another guard in the backcourt, veteran guard she's not going to be afraid to shoot the ball. She's a good playmaker, prone to the turnover too. But, it'll be interesting to see if she kind of commands some of those Kelsey Plum minutes. And then, also bring in Danielle Robinson from the Lynx.
I love
another kind of guard that could eat into that Kelsey Plum role. So that'll be interesting to see how they kind of, play the backcourt this year, especially with Jackie Young still there. So maybe they move her more to point guard. So it's going to be it's gonna be interesting. They got a couple weeks to figure it out, so I'm kind of intrigued to see what that looks like. But I think like last year we talked about when Liz Cambage came over, the Aces were just a deep team where we didn't really know where the production was going to come from. And even with Cambage gone this year, at first it might be kind of the same thing where we stay away just a little bit at the beginning to see how some of the minutes and the usage plays out. But I still think there are some top players to target within the team as well.
So I don't want you to talk about the one player that I think we both feel we can even early on target right away. So can you?
Sure. I think Asia Wilson.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah. There you go. I think Asia Wilson, for sure, it's going to be that premier target. As a rookie, she comes in with just the massive numbers, which is kind of unheralded for a rookie. Something we can expect big things for without Liz Cambage next to her. And even last season, Wilson was more of the 30, 35 fantasy point player, but without Cambage next to her, just a lot more shots to go around, a lot more rebounding opportunity. And you should see her play more as a center, so she should be closer to the basket, which is what we love for from a DFS standpoint, just able to do more. So I think you should see that the rookie type numbers, if not better, kind of come back this year. And so I think early on, she will be a player that I play probably more often than not, at least to start the season. 2 years ago, I think we played her a lot of the time. Last season did not play her much at all. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting her back into my lineups. And I think along with her, Dearica Hamby definitely is worth very much a mention too. She, in games where Cambage and Wilson missed last year, she slotted in. It was just an easy value play, always, kind of hit value with every tag she was at. And, she's a good player. She goes to one of these 4 or 5 bad teams in the league and she's their best player probably right off the bat. It's kind of one of those things where she's a very solid player who should be starting at that power forward spot to start the season. Could be a bit underpriced, so could look to take advantage of that. However, by late season, then if she kind of gets the price up there, towards the $7,000-$8,000 mark, will be someone that I'm still be prioritizing Asia Wilson over her. When it comes down to it, so it'll be interesting to see how prices and that kind of thing plays out.
Yeah, and then I'll kind of take this wing debacle, and then you can let me know. So, one of our favorite players, who's been somebody that always seemed to go under-owned and always produces, is Kayla McBride, who's just a stud in her own right. I think it's going to be really interesting just to see how all these the shots and the usage on the wings comes out, because Angel McCoughtry is going to eat into that. There's no way Angel McCoughtry is going to just be a peripheral / role piece. It's just not in her DNA. So you're going to have Jackie Young, who's the number 1 pick last year, who's just a complete bust, but we should see try to regain some of that form. So you got Jackie Young, you got Alex Bentley, who wants 37 shots in 2 minutes. You've got Kayla McBride, McCoughtry, and then all while being all the same, you've got to feed Asia Wilson because she's your best player. So I think that's just where the headache of the Aces is going to be. I think I'm with you early on. I'm going to be using Asia Wilson to get my Aces in there, and then just probably fade the rest unless we get some injury news. Do you see anything different there?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you. I think, you mentioned it, but you really have 5 very capable players that probably all think they should be playing significant minutes, for the 1, 2, and 3 spot for the Aces. So that's just going to provide some, like you said, some headaches, I think, for sure. Early on, I think you probably see Jackie Young play the point guard, maybe with McBride and McCoughtry in the lineup with her, and then Robinson and Bentley off the bench. But even then, it's just crowded. So like you said, I think I'll be focusing on Wilson, Hamby early on. Let the rest kind of play out, and just, I don't know. I think it's something I'm just going to be avoiding to start the season off at least.
I think for real basketball, the only smart move, you bring in talent, right? But I think Danielle Robinson was a great move, somebody that doesn't need shots and will distribute, play good defense, and just a veteran presence. So I love that move. But I don't know, with all the equity they have in Jackie Young, that they can start Danielle Robinson over her to start, which is what you probably should do. You probably should have a point guard like Danielle Robinson starting that doesn't command shots. If she has 2 shots in the game, she'll still be okay. But whatever. On to the Mercury. It's just crazy to think we've already done 3 in the West and haven't gotten to the Mercury, who season in, season out, if Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner are playing, they will be in contention. And they added another stud. Will, why don't you go over that?
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of Brittany Griner, I feel like I haven't talked about her at all. It's on the podcast a couple of days ago. I didn't even mention her, so it's just, I think Phoenix is kind of going slept on a little bit this year. They lose to Wana Bonner. Obviously we talked about that in the last, episode, going to Connecticut. Breon January goes with her. Leilani Mitchell goes to Washington. Essence Carson goes to Washington. And Yvonne Turner's no longer with the team. So, they're starting off day one with a very diminished backcourt. That's for sure. Then obviously they lose, a big time player and, DeWanna Bonner, an all around contributor. So, that'll be a big blow. But, I think they kind of were fine to do that, because they're bringing in, they have Skylar Diggins-Smith now, who, took the season off after being with the Wings, takes the season off, pregnancy leave, I believe. And so she's back this year. So it'll be interesting to see, sometimes players come off, that type leave. Not as good as they were before, but we've also seen players come back and do it just fine. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. And I think she's the type player where I think that they put some stock in her. She's gonna be a player that comes back fine. So I think she'll be ready to go game one. Bring in Skylar Diggins-Smith, Bria Hartley from New York, who's a good ad, I believe, to kind of like sew up the backcourt there. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough from Washington as well, another decent ad. And then they bring in Sabrina from Atlanta to probably play the number 4 spot alongside Griner. And, we'll touch on this in a little bit, but, Brittany Griner's never been the rebounding center that we thought she could be. And so Jessica Breland, should be able to definitely help her on that category. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Let me freeze you. Jessica Breland, it did come out like a day ago, is not going to play this season.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she's not going to
play. As of yesterday. Okay, well then
it was a couple of days ago. Thanks to RotorWire WNBA's updates, but Jessica Breland.
Look at that.
Playing.
I don't even know my league anymore. So big bumps to Breonna Turner there for sure.
Yep.
So no Jessica Breland now, and anybody, I'm trying to see if I have anybody else. Kia Vaughn comes back, joined the team, kind of the backup center behind Griner, and then Coffee from the Atlanta Dream, who actually could have a pretty decent role early on, I think, just because of their lack of wings. So those are kind of the big moves.
And then I will just give one addition. Diana Taurasi pretty much did not play last year.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't say that. Yeah.
I mean, she's been there, right? Like, you picture Diana Taurasi in a Mercury uniform, but that's like we kind of talked about Stewart and Bird being additions to the team without actually having to like sign anybody new. DT, assuming that she's back to full health, that's a huge ad from the scoring standpoint.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Is it like a Kenneth Parker thing where she was off last season, she comes back and she's fine this year, or is that
I don't know.
Sign of it's over? I don't know what to think about that situation.
I think any sort of explosion's gone, but she's going to be able to shoot. Like, she's going to score 30 points in a game.
Yeah. She'll play shooting guard, right? She'll have Skylar just bring the ball up and she'll sit in the corner, or she'll send the wing there and hit him. I mean, I can't imagine her playing point.
I mean, if I was the coach, I'd just be like, hey, Diana, there's the corner. You don't have to come back on defense. Just hit me 9 threes and we'll be good.
Yeah, that's fine. It'll be an early X in the playoffs, just like every year for the Mercury. I guess
pretty much.
Case,
but
yeah.
I mean, she's what? Is she the greatest women's basketball player ever, potentially?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure.
I think that we can give it. So, she can do whatever she wants at this point. But I think she will score. So I just want to say this in terms of targets. I think Skylar Diggins-Smith and Brittany Griner is going to be an unbelievable 1-2 combo this year. I can't wait to watch what it looks like. And I can't wait. I think Brittany, like, the more that I've thought about it, with no potentially Breland, and now with DeWanna Bonner not stealing so much of the rebounding, I think Brittany Griner could have a massive season. And maybe that's somebody at the beginning gets a little under-owned depending on who's on the slate, and we can just click the heck out of her, be overweight on the field, and maybe enjoy some early 60s.
Yeah, the Breland is big because, I was thinking, Brittany Griner is kind of great. I thought she'd have a better year than she did last year with DeWanna Bonner gone. But I thought bringing Jessica Breland in is going to be someone, that can, kind of rack up the block steals and rebounds around her and kind of have Griner focus more on the scoring side of things. But, that's a big loss for them, actually, the more that I think about it. Brittany Griner, like you said, that's going to open up, a lot more rebounding opportunity. This is a running joke between me and you is Brittany Griner for her size is a horrible rebounder. I mean, you watch her play, she just reaches out to kind of use her size to try to grab the ball and stuff. I don't think she's ever once tried to fight for position a day in her life. So maybe this will kind of wake her up and realize that she might have to do that. But yeah, she's going to be in an incredible spot. And I know day one, they're on that slate against the Sparks, and that kind of seems like a mismatch on neck
Well.
already.
Yeah, that might be one though. I was just going to point out that like Brianna Turner, whoever starts at the 4, could be a good value, but not versus Sparks. That might not be the time that
Yeah,
we.
Breland, right, it was a solid contributor from. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah, let me start over for a second.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Just go ahead and go back.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I think the no Jessica Breland thing really opens up things for Brianna Turner. It's kind of a potential value play early on. Who should play a lot of minutes at the power forward slot and even play some center minor. But needless to say, Griner's going to be a top play. Kind of interested to see what who the wings are for the Mercury this year. I think the backcourt's pretty set with Taurasi and Diggins, and maybe some Bria Harley off the bench behind them. And then you obviously have Griner in the front court, but that 3 and 4, I'm kind of curious to see maybe if it's Coffee or who really kind of takes the minutes on the wings. And not that it really matters because I think Phoenix has had some pretty unimportant wings in the past with Devon Turner and some of those players. But I mean, it's not really going to matter. But it will be interesting to see the value as early on with them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is look, we played DFS long enough with the Mercury to know like sometimes those other starters are just clickbait, and realistically, like if you have Diggins, Smith, Perazi, and Brooke Griner in the court, nobody else is entitled to take a shot.
Sure.
I mean, this is how it's always kind of been like a big 3 thing for them. So I just think I'm gonna just focus on those. If I have like the last piece in for like 3,500 on FanDuel or something, then fine. But otherwise, especially early on, there's always going to be some misprices. So let's figure those out. All right. Used to be that in the Western Conference, we could just plug this team as number 1 and move on. But the Minnesota Lynx, not so much anymore. Maya Moore is still not there. Sylvia Fowles is getting a little bit older, had a struggle last year. Why don't you talk to me about what we're looking at with the Lynx?
Yeah, and they're struggling. They're not as good as they were, and they will not be as good as they were last year either. They lose a lot more than they get this year in the off season. Odyssey Sims taking the season off. Daniel Robinson now in Las Vegas. Simone Augustus in Los Angeles. So their 3 primary ball handlers from last year all gone. And Odyssey Sims is a big loss because she had a great year last year. Took a big step, and Stephanie Talbot's gone as well. As far as they bring in Rachel Bannum, Shanice Johnson, and 2 picks in the draft. So that's essentially where the Lynx are doing. So it's definitely uncharted territory for Cheryl Reeve a little bit. It's a different looking team, so it'll be interesting to see how they look this year.
Yeah, and I think this might be one of them and Dallas might be shorter segments from us because there's just not going to be a lot there. I do think that obviously I had 3 targets that popped out to me: Sylvia Fowles, Nafisha Collier, and then maybe a surprise. And I hope she's even on the roster, but Lexi Brown might be somebody.
Oh yeah,
Okay, cool. At least we're on the same page. So why don't you at least talk about those 3 and maybe if there's anybody else that I missed?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can start with Fowles. I mean, Fowles she's more on the back end of her career. I mean, like honestly, to be quite frank, she's in the spot to have an amazing season this year. Like as far as usage goes, like if she's up for it, if age hasn't really caught up to her yet, this will be the test because I think it's a great spot for her. As far as I think they'll probably get her involved a little bit more than they did last year, just because of the lack of real playmakers around her. So it'll be interesting to see how she reacts to that because 2 or 3 years ago she was the premier play. The 40, 50 fantasy point player, blocks, steals, rebounds. Like she reacted up, and we kind of saw her fall off last year. Once Nafisa Collier kind of entered the picture, but so it'll be interesting to see how Sylvia Fowles is this year because I think she could really be in a good spot, but she'll probably be someone I stay away from the beginning just because her floor was a lot lower last year than years past. And I think it's primarily attributed to age, kind of catching up with her. Nafisa Collier, I mean, with Sims now gone, Sims and Collier kind of split the clutch time, playmaking, shot taking responsibility, and so this year it's going to be Collier. And I think any scoring situation where they need a bucket, it's going to go to her. And they should probably run the offense through her, which is interesting because she had a great rookie year, obviously rookie of the year, fantastic season. But you also do see that sophomore slump a lot of times in these players that do that well. So when defense is now focused on her and she becomes the primary focus for her own team, it's going to be interesting to see how she reacts to that. Because I don't know, I mean, I think she's going to have a good season, but it will be interesting at least early on. She's not someone I'll be chasing. I kind of want to see her kind of the prove it to me attitude. I kind of want to see her do it a couple of times this year before I start plugging her into my lineups. However, if she is, cheap enough,
Yeah.
FanDuel DraftKings, she is a play that you can't take advantage of because I think she does offer a stable floor as far as she probably will lead the team in shots, and she'll probably be the cheapest player across the league that leads her team in shots, so you can't honestly disregard that. And like you said, Lexi Brown, I think great play. Just because obviously they lose so much in the backcourt. Lexi Brown is, honestly, so far, like in her DFS career, has been very much a scoring reliant player. You needed her to score 15 points for her to get you to value. However, she's going to have a lot of opportunity. You probably should see her with the ball in her hands more this year. She'll have more of a playmaking role. So interesting to see what that looks like. And she will be cheap early on. I'm sure there's no way I can see sites pricing her up. So I imagine she starts and plays, very good minutes early on. So she could be a very solid target. Outside of that, I honestly just don't even know.
Yeah.
I'll just bring up Christmas Kelly. They bring in Rachel Banham, Shanice Johnson.
Banham's better than Danson and the Twitter posts.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I'll just maybe some that I might be more willing to chance early on than others is Shanice Johnson. Just we've seen huge upside from Shanice Johnson when she gets
2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
So, it's somebody, if, we see her getting the starting nod, getting a run with the new team, I could see that, but, she's got to be cheap enough to make it playable. All right. Final team, the Dallas Wings, who got the easy cellar dweller in the West. Now, we could have a little bit of upside with our girl Irique, but why don't you talk to me about ads, departures, and just the overall view of the team?
Offseason they lose Glory Johnson, was a pretty big loss just because, some veteran leadership, and it really was a solid contributor come across the board for them. So she's gone, and then they waived Kayla Davis, are kind of the two big offseason move, which, Kayla Davis I never thought she was a great player, but she was someone that kept ending up in our lineup just because she was always cheap enough for them last year. So it's funny to say, but that's kind of how it worked out. And, they bring in 3 first-round picks. Savali from Oregon is the second overall pick, who I think actually will play a pretty big role early on in the season. And then Bella Larry for the 5th pick, and Tyesha Harris with the 7th pick. So it'll be interesting to see how they implement the rookies. And then, Mariah Jefferson's back from injury after missing last season, which will be interesting. I think, now it's going to be a more off-ball role for her. But, she can play some big minutes next to Enrique, so that'll be interesting. And then they bring in Samuelson from the Sky, who kind of busted with them last year, so she'll get a fresh new start in Dallas. And then they bring in Stu Indu. Our girls, she's back, yeah. And then Marina Mabry. So kind of a bunch of very mads, but we'll see how they all kind of come together for them.
And they also, did you mention losing Azura Stevens?
Oh, then losing Azura Stevens. Good
so there are
point.
two of the better front court players.
Yeah, front court players gone.
Mm-hmm. Which, somebody that's won us a lot of money in the past is McGee Stafford still there?
She's on the roster now. She's gone.
Oh no!
So, yeah.
Oh no! All my hype about the Wings early on is gone.
I could be mistaken, but I think she's sitting out the season.
Well, now indoor might really be a play.
Sure.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about the two people that we know night in and night out we can play, which is Irique Agumbale, hopefully, and Alicia Gray.
Yeah. So Irique Agumbale, I think that's how you say it. She last year, great year. We talk about rookies, often had bad years, and she took a while to get going. To be fair,
she had a bad 2 months.
She did. She started off very rough, and then she closed the season on a crazy high note. So she's kind of the face of that franchise going forward at the moment. She's more of an off-ball player, but last year they put the ball in her hands, with people out, and she made things happen. And so she's going to be someone that she got pretty highly priced last year on FanDuel and DraftKings, but she was still someone that we were willing to play just because of the sheer usage and shots that she was taking. It was just kind of unprecedented. It was very just unprecedented for that guard position. So that was someone we're like, well, if we have to kind of revamp our stance on this because the success that she was having. So she's going to be someone early on a team that's just not very good that loses Glory Johnson. She's still going to be seeing those same shots, I imagine. So someone that if she's not priced up accordingly, someone would take advantage of. And she does provide, definitely a good floor just with the shot, the sheer amount of shots she's taking. And, her kind of coming in last year, Definitely kind of hampered Alicia Gray's role a little bit. I think Alicia Gray in years past had been more of a scoring option and really more of just a DFS kind of like, piece that we wanted to prioritize for the Dallas Wings. However, last year was kind of a down year for her, but I do think, in the offseason, they work on getting her the ball more and helping, her and Enrique kind of work better together because, Alicia Gray is a really good player. And so I'd be surprised if, they didn't want to implement her back in the offense as well. So you should see those two become, the 1-2 punch in the backcourt, really in for the team, for the Wings. And, they obviously kind of round up the starting lineup with Kayla Thorne, who's, an all around, just kind of, and, a very good defensive player. So she contributes in the rebounds, blocks and steals, but it's all about the scoring for her, if she can get the points to go with that to make her a worthwhile piece in DFS. But, she's a solid player as well. With kind of some of the, if no Monty McGee Stafford behind Isabel Harrison, that makes her, could make her a solid value early on. Isabel Harrison's always kind of been talented. And so if you see her price, in that 5.5, 6K range on FanDuel, she could be someone that could easily provide 30 and 40 or, 30, 40 fantasy points early on, as a starting center. And really, the size on the Dallas Wings team. So they're going to have her, to match up against some of these bigger teams. That power forward spot, filling Gloria Johnson's hole, probably will be Sabali early on. Maybe they could see maybe Endower slot in there early on, or but I would imagine they probably try to get the rookie in there early on. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. And then I think the other ad would be Mariah Jefferson, who, in the 10-year win, who was the San Antonio, what were they?
Yeah, San Antonio.
When she played for San Antonio, it's the Stars. Yeah, a couple of years ago. She was a solid player for them before that whole franchise rebranded. And so, she's a solid player, and she's proven that before, but obviously she missed all last year. And so it'll be interesting to see how she kind of gets mixed back in with Enrique and Gray already kind of established in that backcourt. So that's kind of all I've got for the Wings.
Mariah may take our Kayla Davis tilt for us.
There you go. Yeah, that'll be it. Your $3,800 play off the bench that you just pray somehow gets to 7 or 8 points and a couple of rebound assists. But that's pretty much all I got for the Dallas Wings.
I think that you actually hit on who I overlooked at the beginning, but I think it's at the start, Agumbale, Gray, and then Isabella Harrison with nobody else in the front court, and take your chances. And then, like you said, if sometimes we've seen these rookies that I remember distinctively Aja Wilson, the first slate, like 2 years ago, was like 4.6K. So, on FanDuel. So if we maybe get a missed price early on, we can take advantage of it. But if not, deal with take who you know. Finally, before we get out of here, Dubs, why don't you just talk a little bit about the content that you're going to be doing this year at FSI and why people should give it a run?
Sure. I think I mentioned on the first video with, all the sports coming back, there's going to be so many different, sites that are kind of spreading thin their content and material to, to all the different sports. And so a sport like WNBA, niche sport that hasn't garnered a ton of, interest in the past, but I think is starting to grow for sure in that regard. Me having been just dedicated just to WNBA for this season is going to be massive because you have someone that, has proven success, pretty much focused on night in and night out, just focusing on WNBA for y'all. And so that'll be my primary focus all season. So, the video content that I'll be putting out, a couple free ones or, for the public, but mostly it's going to be behind a paywall. Once you subscribe, you're going to get these premium videos that are going to be really me just going down the FanDuel and DraftKings lineup rosters and just breaking down my top plays, the top spots I want to target, which is just, huge. It'll help me really communicate, those picks to y'all. And then also, being in the Discord chat where you're getting, breaking news, lineups, premium chat, and then as well as, the core plays for FanDuel and DraftKings for, main slates and then DraftKings showdowns. I mean, there's going to be so much, content that I'll be putting out there. And I think just me being solely focused, to WNBA is just going to be a massive advantage for y'all, and a big reason why you want to be, a part of the FSI team for WNBA.
Yeah, make sure to join up. It's only $10 a week, or you can do a monthly package where you save a little bit and do 30. Also part of our VIP package for those that I'm going to be 2 sports. I'm going to be actually, I guess 2.5, and do a little bit of NBA on FanDuel, but then WNBA and soccer for me. But there are a lot of people that like 9 sports at once. We have packages for those two and different guys handling things. So make sure you give FSI a shout. Last thing I'll just mention, Dubs, what are your thoughts on this? I'm really hoping with NBA overlapping, we maybe don't see some of the other heavy hitters that we've seen in the past years in WNBA. Maybe they just focus on the bigger NBA prize pools. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm definitely wondering what that looks like. I think it's going to be I think will see some people go play NBA, but you also have people kind of contrary to that, thinking, well, if everyone's going to go play NBA, then I'm still going to stay in WNBA. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, I'm a heavy hitter. I'll be in WNBA. We'll see. We'll see what the rest of them do, but it'll be interesting. I think you will see maybe prize pools diminish a little bit.
Yep.
Just with, obviously spreading out sports and things like that. But I mean, you could also see them opening up big tournaments to start. And if they don't fill, then, they diminish them as the season goes along. So, regardless of, what the prize pools are and what that looks like, I'll be finding ways to play. And, I'm not going to change the content at all based on that. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a fun year, no matter what that looks like. And I think I wanted to add this, another interesting thing is going to be now with the way the season looks with 3 games every day, you're not getting the 1 game slates or the 5 game slates, that we've had in the past. I think we've always talked about, I don't know, I think we run the consistent maybe 3 games. We love the big slates, but 3 game slates are a great number. It's a great number of games in a day. And so I'm excited that, night in and night out, it's going to be 3 games every single day.
Yep.
So that's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to we're not going to have those 1-2 game slates that were kind of like, half the week where you're just like, I don't really know what to think about this. So it'll be good that you're getting 3 games every single day. And, should provide some big wins throughout the season, I would think.
Yep. It's going to be great. Guys, make sure you join. Will, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great day, buddy.
Hey, you too. Have a good one, Gator.
All right,